Morning. Here we are back in Granny Shares the Bible, Mark chapter 6 and verse 13. And they cast out many devils and anointed with oil many that were sick and healed them. Who did that? They did, the disciples. The Lord gave them the power to cast out devils and to anoint with oil and heal the people that were sick. Does he give us that power? He said it, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. And then he said in Luke chapter 10 that he had all power. And then Luke chapter 10, he tells us, let me go back there, or ahead to there, says, Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Behold, I give unto you power. So the Lord, we belong to him. We're his disciples. We're his followers. And he gives us power to go out into this world and cast out devils and heal the sick. So don't forget that. If you see somebody that's sick, that needs healing, get you some oil and anoint them and pray over them and believe that Jesus has sent you to do that. Okay? To heal them. And King Herod heard of him, for his name was spread abroad, and he said that John the Baptist was risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. Others said that it is Elias, and others said that it is a prophet, or as one of the prophets. So they're all trying to nail Jesus down to somebody that had already been there, somebody they already knew. They didn't want to let him be the Son of God that God had just sent to him. Anyhow, that was a wonderful thing for the Bible to tell us that they didn't want to accept him for who he was. But I do, don't you? And then it says, But when Herod heard thereof, he said, It is John whom I beheaded. He is risen from the dead. For Herod himself had sent forth and laid hold upon John, and bound him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife, for he had married her. For John had said unto Herod, It is not lawful for thee to have thy brother's wife. Therefore Herodias had a quarrel against him, and would have killed him, but she could not. For Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just man and holy, and observed him. And when he heard him, he did many things, and heard him gladly. So Herodias, she was odious, let me tell you. Odious means that she stunk. Her ways stunk. And she had connived her way into being Herod's wife instead of Philip's wife, his brother, leaving him and marrying Herod. I don't know why Herod would want her, because she wasn't good at all. But Herod had married Philip's wife. And John was telling him, It's not lawful for thee to have thy brother's wife. His brother was not dead. He was alive. And somehow they just kind of got, done it a different way. And he was the king of that place. But he had this woman that it wasn't lawful for him to be married to her. So Herodias, that wonderful woman Herodias, she had a quarrel against him and would have killed him, but she could not. For Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just man and an holy, and observed him. And when he heard him, he did many things and heard him gladly. So Herod had some fear about him, but Herodias did not. Herod realized he was a just man and a holy, and observed him. See, John the Baptist was the first prophet, first holy man that God had sent since he was quiet after the book of Malachi. First one to to bring the word of the Lord to Israel. Then, after 400 years, here comes John the Baptist. And let me look back here what it says about Malachi when it was written. Malachi was 487 B. No, wrong one. 397 BC. Something like 430 years between the New Testament and the Old Testament, between any prophet coming at all that was from God. And here was John the Baptist. And Herod knew he was holy. He knew he was a just man. And he observed him. And it sounded like he tried to straighten some things up, do things differently. He heard him. He did many things and heard him gladly. So John the Baptist was making some inroads with Herod. But listen, and when a convenient day was come that Herod on his birthday made a supper to his lords, high captains, and chief estates of Galilee, and when the daughter of the said Herodias came in and danced and pleased Herod and them that sat with him, the king said unto the damsel, Ask of me whatsoever thou wilt, and I will give it thee. Wow, what a promise. And he sware unto her, Whatsoever thou shalt ask of me, I will give it thee unto the half of my kingdom. Woo! That girl dancing, and he's willing to give her half of his kingdom. He must have been drunk. That's all I can say. He must have been drunk. And so he swore it to her. I mean, made an oath that he would do it. And she went forth and said unto her mother, What shall I ask? What shall I ask? I mean, he'd give me houses. He'd give me land. He'd give me horses. He'd give me, anything I want, I can ask for. And she said, the head of John the Baptist. That was the one thing that she shouldn't have asked for. But listen to what the daughter did. And she came in straightway with haste unto the king and asked, saying, I will that thou give me by and by in a charger the head of John the Baptist. And the king was exceeding sorry. Yet for his oath's sake, and for their sakes which sat with him, he would not reject her. And that man has been sorry ever since. Let's go back to where we were reading. And King Herod heard of him in verse 14. For his name was spread abroad, and he said that John the Baptist was risen from the dead. Therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. Now, his guilty conscience. And now he's thinking that Jesus is John the Baptist risen from the dead. And others are saying Elijah or that prophet or one of the prophets. That it is a prophet or one of the prophets. But when Herod heard thereof, he said, It is John whom I beheaded. He is risen from the dead. His guilty conscience that he had killed John. It says he gladly heard him. Heard him gladly. Did many things when he heard him. Well, I can tell you one thing. You can learn a lesson from this. If you make a vow and you can't keep it because it's too horrible to do, don't keep it. Allow everybody to think you're a liar. That's learning from King Herod. It's better for everybody to think you're a liar than to do something that ruins everything in your life. And that did. And immediately It says, and the king was exceeding sorry, yet for his oath's sake, and for their sakes which sat with him, he would not reject her. And immediately the king sent an executioner and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded him in the prison, and brought his head in a charger, and gave it to the damsel, and the damsel gave it to her mother. Poor old John the Baptist. He wore camel's hair with a leathern girdle about his loins. He ate locust and wild honey. He preached. He baptized. He had disciples. He baptized Jesus. But now his time was over. But I'm going to tell you something. When they came toward him to behead him, I know he didn't want that to happen. None of us want that to happen. None of us want anything like that to happen to us. But we don't know what's going to happen to us as Christians. We don't know who's going to get angry with us and want us dead, want us be gone off this earth. We don't know what's going to happen to us. So realize that it can happen. And always look forward to being with the Lord, meeting the Lord, however it happens. I think that's our answer. To always look forward to being with Jesus. And if it has to happen in a violent way, or if it has to happen in a hate-filled way, if we have to be a martyr, we still get to go and be with him. Okay, so they brought his head. Can you imagine a girl, the delicate little girl that danced so pretty? Maybe it was sultry. I don't know what kind of dance it was, but whatever it was, all of those men thought it was wonderful. But she had to carry that charger, that big tray with that head, to her mother. And her mother wanted it. Her mother wanted him dead and wanted his head on that charger. That's horrible. It's grim. But John said it. He said he must increase and I must decrease. And he definitely was decreased right then. And sad thing. And when his disciples heard of it, they came and took up his corpse and laid it in a tomb. And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. So we're going back in reference to where they went and cast out many devils and anointed with oil many that were sick and healed them. So that whole portion right there was to explain why Herod said Jesus was John the Baptist risen from the dead. That whole portion there was to explain what happened with John the Baptist. But then we come back to his disciples. Not John's disciples. That was verse 29 was referring to John's disciples. And when his disciples heard of it, they came and took up his corpse and laid it in a tomb. So those were John's disciples. Then it says, and the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus. Now, I think that's the first time the word apostles is said about the disciples, because Jesus had sent them out 2 by 2. And that's what apostles means. It means people that are sent out by the Lord. He sends people out. And that changes their name from followers of Christ, which is disciples, to apostles, because they're sent out from him. And that's why Mark called themselves, Mark called the disciples at that time apostles. And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, come ye yourselves apart unto a desert place and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. So The Lord is not unmindful of you when you get tired, of you when you have done your best and it's time for you to rest. He's not unmindful of that. He did that for his apostles, his disciples, which were his apostles. He said, "Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place and rest a while." And we'll do it, won't we? When we need to rest, we will. And then the Lord will direct our lives from there on. God bless you, and I will see you tomorrow, Lord willing.